In a previous video, we talked about the ties you have with your country of origin and which ones are the most important to cut in order to avoid challenges to your tax residence. Today, we'll talk about the complementary topic. So, how to strengthen your economic and social ties with Paraguay. Essentially, cutting ties with your country of origin helps reduce the chances of an audit by that country's tax authority. On the other hand, strengthening your ties to Paraguay ensures that if an audit does happen, you'll be able to prove that Paraguay is 100% your sole legitimate tax residence. Let's start with three absolutely essential things you must be able to demonstrate if an audit comes. Your tax residency certificate, ideally even apostilled and translated if needed, your domicile, so the address that represents the center of your interests in Paraguay, where your important correspondence also is sent, and your income tax declarations. Now we'll see how to obtain these three things in Paraguay, but before that I want to emphasize something. Audits usually arise from suspicion rather than random checks. That suspicion might come from a large bank transaction, or the fact that you've returned to your home country 1 billion times in the same year, or simply that you don't follow proper procedures when exiting your former tax residence, such as notifying the tax authority or the banks you were using. I bring this up because being smart and preventing suspicion is always the better choice. That said, being audited is part of life, and there's nothing to worry about if you've done things correctly. As for the tax residency certificate, we've dedicated an entire video about it, so if you're curious, go and watch it, and I am sure that you will find everything you may want to know about that document right there. When it comes to your domicile instead, you can handle it in two ways. If you've chosen Paraguay as your base and you live here most of the time, you'll already have either a long-term contract or you even own a property in your name, and in that case, you already have everything you need to prove a stable address in the country. At the same time, as you probably know, one of the unique features of tax residency in Paraguay is that you don't actually have to spend 183 days in the country to be considered a tax resident. As a result, many people legitimately have their tax residency here, but don't have a physical address in Paraguay. In this case, my advice is never to neglect this point, as it can really matter. Not only is having an address essential to link to your country of tax residence, and you'll never pass an audit by saying that you live nowhere in what you call your country of residency, but supporting documents for your Paraguayan address will be continuously requested by banks, brokers, crypto exchanges, and even more so if you also have an LLC abroad. One solution is to use a concierge service like the one we offer, though we're not the only ones, just to be transparent. A concierge service allows you to have a residential address in Paraguay, receive mail, and depending on how well it's set up, you will also access additional documents to back up the legitimacy of your address. In our client's case, they receive a lease signed by the rightful owner of the home, access to utility bills, and assurance that no more than 10 to 15 people share their address. We also strive to ensure that no two people from the same country share the same address unless they're married, so that these addresses are never flagged as PO boxes or similar. I also want to stress that all these are real residential homes, not PO boxes. Plus, on our platform, you can always find and download these documents anytime you need them. The third thing you might be asked for is your income declarations. Once again, it's very important to be prepared. We always recommend that other than taking care of the RUC and filing the mandatory stuff, you also file a voluntary declaration of foreign income that isn't taxable under Paraguay's territorial tax system once per year. Remember, Paraguay doesn't care at all about how much money you earn abroad and does not tax it. These declarations are not mandatory and they aren't required by the DNIT. However, it's still useful to be able to show both your home country and your banks that you have transparently declared in Paraguay, the country of residency you have, the funds held in your account. These are the three elements that are the foundation of a strong tax position. Now, let's look at the additional things that can help to move your position from strong to bulletproof. To start with, a bank account, even a small one that you can open remotely like Bueno, and really all you need is your cedula there. Recently, Bueno's account statements has also been updated to include your residential address so that the bank statement you get from Bueno also now becomes another official proof of domicile. Of all the accounts in Paraguay, this is the only one that can be opened 100% remotely from outside the country without any issues at all. This lets you prove that you have a Paraguayan bank account registered to your local address, and you can also request a debit card if you wish. Another thing you can do easily, even before getting your cedula, is getting a Paraguayan SIM card. Honestly, it's rare for your country of origin to ask whether you have one, but even if that has never happened in a single audit that we've been through, SIM cards still generate documentation through bills. So if you're asked to provide relevant documentation supporting your residence in Paraguay, those bills will definitely help, just like a driver's license. On top of that, a SIM card is also extremely useful for 3 reasons: to link a phone number to your RUC, for the 2-factor authentication, as many banks and investment brokers now only allow 2FA via a number from your country of residence, and to link it to your bank account in Paraguay with Bueno or any other local bank account. Now, let me share another great way to reinforce your ties with the country: registering with the Chamber of Commerce between Paraguay and the country you're leaving. Not all countries have an embassy here, and not all the ones that have an embassy also have a Chamber of Commerce, but many do. For example, I stay actively involved with the Chamber of Commerce between Italy and Paraguay, which was recently completely reorganized. But there are chambers for many other countries as well, like France, the UK, Germany, Spain, Brazil, Argentina, and more. All of those have active, functioning chambers of commerce with Paraguay that I also dealt with. The list of members, individuals and businesses, is often published in the official register, and those chambers of commerce are under the jurisdiction of their country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That means that by joining a chamber of commerce, you're creating a documented proof of your economic and social interest in Paraguay and of your desire to connect with other entrepreneurs from the same country who operate here. A great benefit to this is that membership usually costs little or even nothing, often less than $20 or $25 a year for individual members. Moving on, while economic and tax ties are often easy to prove, social and emotional ties can be much harder. Even though you almost certainly still have stronger family and emotional connections to your home country than to Paraguay, you can at least demonstrate social engagement through charitable donations. There are many local organizations here that will provide documentation for every single charitable donation you do. It's good for you, it's good for them, and it's good for the people that are helped by your generosity. Even small donations, especially when done regularly, are a great way to show human connection to Paraguay. Another subtle but effective thing you can do is to collect casual evidence of your physical presence in Paraguay. This might include saving your boarding passes when you fly into the country, or keeping the receipts from hotels, restaurants, and even attending local events. You don't need to live with paranoia, but these little pieces of evidence can come in handy during an audit, especially if you're dealing with a more aggressive tax authority like the likes of Spain and Poland. A quick tip that many may overlook: your digital footprint also speaks volume. If you're spending some time in Paraguay, consider letting it reflect online, logging from here, posting from here, even citing your digital profiles or online invoices to your Paraguayan address. It's not mandatory, but again, it helps strengthen your story and avoid to make digital contradictions. With all that said, it's important to remember that while Paraguay doesn't require you to spend a certain amount of time here to qualify as a tax resident, spending time in the country is always a great way to demonstrate your connection. It doesn't need to be a lot, but ideally, you should spend more time here than you spend in your home country. It also depends on the country you're leaving, you know? In the UK, for instance, there's the SRT rules that make it very easy to determine whether or not a person is a tax resident there, and they allow you to move your tax residence into Paraguay very easily, even if you spend 0 days here. In countries like Italy or Canada, the 183-day rule is so strictly enforced that what matters is you don't spend 183 days there, but it really doesn't matter how long you spend here. Then there are countries like Ireland and Spain, where it's much harder to break free from the ties of the tax system. In some cases, they've even challenged someone's claim by pointing to an active gym membership in Spain. And finally, of course, any investment you ever make in Paraguay, whether it's property, business, bonds, local stocks, etc., will naturally count as additional ties supporting your tax residency here. So, As always, that's all from Asuncion for today. See you in Paraguay.